All right, welcome to another week of our Security Awareness Manager Community LinkedIn Live. I'm really excited this week to present to you Elisheva Hudson of Hudson Films. Thank you, Elisheva, for joining us.
Thank
Um,
you for having me.
yeah, so Elisheva, you want to just introduce yourself shortly and then we'll just kind of get into it from there.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be here. Really excited to have this discussion today. So, yeah, I'm Elisheva. I run Hudson Films. My background is actually in longer form documentary filmmaking. Ended
Cool.
up coming to Israel, and then at a certain point, I was working as a video editor. I really wanted to get back into filming, so I started to do freelance and promotional video, which was, there's a really big need for it, as I'm sure we'll talk about today. Everyone's seeing, the need for video. But after a while, I really started to see, wait, I can really bring this documentary style into promotional film and video, which,
Cool.
we'll get into tonight. But just that's sort of what I love doing. I really love bringing storytelling, documentary styles, and authenticity to the promotional video space.
I love that. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is exactly that, for security awareness, like reframing it for our managers who run their security awareness programs, trying to give them some skills that they can use to kind of, jumpstart them into how to create an effective video that will be, impactful for their program without having to go through all the hits and misses, for those who may not be as familiar with that type of background and skill set. So, because in cybersecurity, well, specifically in the security awareness I can do this in the arena of managing a security awareness program. There is slowly a shift happening where they want to create more of a security culture, right? We've understood that you can't just do once a year, watch these training videos, and yay, we're secure. You're going to not click that link, and you're going to, report what you're supposed to report. But part of that, is utilizing stories, right? Even personal stories of people within the company, to do that kind of internal promotion of, security. And so I thought this would be a really great idea of learning from someone who knows how to do impactful video in a short amount of time, and even to kind of walk us through the steps of how to think about our video so that they can have it more, successful as possible. So talking about what makes an impactful video, like how would you help them to kind of start with the brainstorming process or direction that they need to get going with the right frame of mind?
Yeah, it's a great question. Obviously, there's a lot to unpack there, and this could be like a workshop, a series, all these things. But I'll start by saying I think that first of all, if you're doing in-house video, if you're
Mm-hmm.
marketers, if you're doing it for yourself, you're really left with your own devices, your own resources, which may include things like YouTube and tutorials and that sort of thing. But the first thing I'll say is I feel like a lot of people get stuck on the technical so much that they forget a lot about the foundations of what am I even putting in this video in order for it to make an impact. First of all, because when I say technical, I mean things like how do I edit this? How do I frame this? Frame the face in the frame of the video, that sort of thing. A smartphone, a camcorder, all these different things. That's what I mean by technical. Like people are getting really stuck on these details, both from a point of view of um, focusing on that so much that they don't focus on the story, as well as just getting stuck on certain things that you may not understand because you haven't done video. So that's sort of like a
Right.
natural step that I want to say that do your best to try to override that as much as possible, or perhaps don't start with the tech. So
Hmm.
the first thing to start with is to really start with what do I want this video to be about? There's a lot of studies and research out there that show that there are many technical things that audiences will be forgiving of when it comes to, let's say, the lighting isn't so good, or the frame, if you're kind of like over here, something like that. People will be quite forgiving of that. But what they won't be forgiving of is if it's quite boring, if they don't want to get through it, if they don't want to sit there and listen to it, watch it, whatever it is. So that's the first thing I would say is like your foundation, where you want to start is, what is this about? What is the story? What is the reason that I'm putting this out here? And then I would say the technical should come once you are already prepared with something to say, okay, now I just need to figure out how to go ahead and do that.
Right. That's a
So
great
that would
point.
be the first thing just to say.
Yeah, and I think that's, I mean, with the rise of cameras and iPhones that have like incredible, photography abilities, the more candid kind of videos that are just, they seem more authentic and more relatable.
Mhm.
And I think that's something very popular that businesses sometimes, I think, forget, because they're like, oh, it has to look polished, it has to look professional. But to be effective, especially for internal, you don't want to be a schluff on it, but like, but like, again, focusing on the story and worrying about the technical, I think it's a really great point. So, we have kind of a little outline we're going by, and we have a PDF that Elisheva was kind enough to put together that just kind of highlights kind of the thought process and the high points of what to consider when you're creating these videos. So we're going to use that to kind of go through in our talk. The first one is unique. You say find someone or something unique. So let's go from there. Again, from the perspective of awareness, so it might be, we're trying to put a new spin on phishing, on, ransomware, and all these different things that some companies have heard over and over. We want to put a unique spin on it. So what are some of your thoughts on what should be kept in mind when we're addressing this first step?
Yeah, so thanks for that introduction to this. So so the idea being uniqueness, specialness, have it be, I don't even know if those are words, but everyone knows what I'm talking about, right? To make it unique. First of all, like, why is that even important for something to be unique? Everyone's bombarded every single day with a lot of content, with written content, with pictures, with video. And if this content that you're considering preparing is going to go on social media, then you're also combating with the feed. You need to be able to stop people, that sort of thing. So even if it wasn't for that, I know that just from a story perspective, it's really important to be unique, because you need to stop people. If this is something that people have already heard before, if they've already seen before, so you need to find some way or some reason that people are going to stop and want to watch it. They're going to want to take part of it in some way. So let's take some real life examples. How can we make our story unique? So there's a lot of different ways. So first of all, I would say one thing probably most people here are familiar with are testimonial style videos, right? We all do testimonials, even if it's just written word or just a picture or something like that. It's one of the best proofs that you can have that what you say you offer, you actually come through and follow through and offer, right? So we're all familiar with testimonials, but let's take it in the video format, right? So how do we take this idea of making a testimonial unique and making it that much more impactful for our video? So what you can do is you can just run through and think, okay, who are the clients that I've helped? And I know in cyber it gets even more complicated because a lot of people don't want to publicly come, and be a public testimonial. But let's say that you have some people that are willing to do that. Let's put that aside for the future, right?
Yeah, well, this would be like for internal, right? So it would be just like internal channels. So testimonials from the leadership to, all the way down to, the support staff. And, so it's a little more closed.
Yeah, so for those, it's definitely, you're able to use it. So if you look at all the possibilities you have for testimonials, you could just review for yourself and think to yourself, which one of these testimonials that I have, these people that I could speak to, are actually different. Maybe they're different looking. Maybe they have a different sort of reason that they came to you, or reason that you've worked together, or something like that. If you can think of something special that's going to really just be memorable for people who watch it in some way. It's not going to be your run-of-the-mill, like, yes, it was great, I really enjoyed it, and that's it, right? These are ways, that's one way to think about being unique. There are other ways as well, which I don't know if the group here will get into it so much, but also just unique ways of putting the story across. Maybe you have some sort of hook that gets people in, starting with a joke, being a little bit funny, and maybe the type of content you usually produce is not so funny, is not so lighthearted. So that's also, you know, just unique in terms of the type of content you produce. The idea being is just to try to think a little bit deeper about, okay, I know what I want to do. I want to do a testimonial. So let's think about ways that we can make this just a little bit different from everything that we've been seeing out there. And that would be sort of like the first step, the first approach.
Right. No, definitely. Gabby. Oh, by the way, hi VJ, and Gabby said, "Don't tell the problem and the answer in the title. Keep a little bit of mystery to it as well." Yeah. So, okay. So, you have the next point you have is summarized as desire. So, like, what does this person want? Does the audience want it to, you know, show the desire and the resolution? So, can you kind of expand on that a little bit more?
Right. So, for this one, this could also definitely apply to our testimonial example, and it also applies to all of your audience. So all of our audiences, they have some sort of problem, right? They have some sort of pain point and they want it fulfilled and they want a solution, and you hopefully have the solution. That's the idea that we're going on. So another way to sort of tap into that concept of a pain point to which you have a solution is to project some sort of desire. Somebody wants something. Somebody is having a challenge in some way. So first of all, just by presenting a problem, a desire for something in a very clear way, you're automatically connecting your audience to the topic at hand, right? Because then they think, oh, that's my problem. I have that as well. I really relate to that. Anything you can do to create relatability is really, really powerful when it comes to even promotional video content. It's powerful when it comes to just going to the movies and you know, watching something for entertainment, but it also works really well when it comes to trying to connect your audience and remind them that you have the solution. Then once there's sort of this expressed desire for something, you're going to want to obviously by the end of the video get to some sort of resolution. Doesn't have to be a full like tie in a bow type of resolution, but that's what we're going for. We're going for opening up some sort of desire, some want for something that connects back to the pain point that you understand for your audience, and then showing some sort of either resolution or potential resolution should you work together.
Right. No, we have another question from Mark. Will unique be enough for the beginning just as a grabber? He's saying because the answer or solution is usually the same for us in security awareness. Don't click that link. Right. That's usually like the answer. Don't click that link. You know, don't download that, you know, suspicious PDF. So, you know, is being unique enough just to get the grabber, you know, to get the person in?
Right. Okay, so it's a great question. First of all, I want to say actually what this question is asking about, it's asking about something called a hook, which people may or may not be familiar with, but it is what it sounds like, which is basically it's the first immediate thing you see, hear, whatever, that hooks people in and is going to get them to watch the rest of the video, read the rest of the content, whatever it is, right? So with a hook, I would say uniqueness applies to the video as a whole. Is the person we're speaking to is unique? Is the way that we're constructing the video as a whole, is that unique? Do we have a unique approach? Is there something different about this? That applies to the video as the whole. But when it comes to the hook, there are a lot of different ways to be able to hook your audience in. And I don't know that I'll be able to just give you a template for what you can use 100% of the time. But what I will say is there are a few different types of hooks that are quite helpful. Sometimes you can start things with a question, or you can present something that gets the audience asking a question. So anytime that there's a question, the audience wants an answer. So they may stick around for the end of that video in order to get that answer. You want to be mindful that it's not too clickbaity, that it still applies in whatever, you know, the information you're going to give across. You want to be mindful of that, and everyone has a different audience, so I'm not going to, you know, tell you guys what to do, but that's just something to keep in mind. Make sure you're not having your hook be either too controversial in a way that doesn't really apply to the rest of the content, but as long as you're taking care of. So a question is one way to do it. There are other ways, kind of some sort of, I guess for lack of a better word, like a visual or audio kind of like shock. Like a common one that I've seen a few times here and there is at the beginning of a video. Sometimes people do this with thumbnails depending on the platform, and sometimes they just do it with the first few seconds of a video. they'll do something like, stop scrolling, you have to hear this now, something like that.
Oh, right.
It just gets people to stop, right? Because they're like, oh, what? First of all, it looks different. It doesn't look like the rest of the stuff on the feed, which ties back to the uniqueness point, of course.
Okay.
And second, it also applies to the question one. Like, it gets the audience asking the question, like, wait, why do they want me to stop? What do they want to tell me? You do want to make sure that there's a payoff for all of these things. But yeah, a hook is definitely important. But a piece of advice that I would give is I would first decide what the video is going to be about as a whole. If you get stuck on this hook, and then go back and be like, okay, now how do we hook our audience in?
Okay. So you don't lose the message.
Yeah, so start off by just saying, what are we presenting? What is this idea? Who's going to be in it? Whatever it is that you want the video to be about. Work with the content first, and then you can go back and kind of bring that content up a level by making sure there's a hook, and doing some of these other things that we'll get through.
Okay, great. I think, one thing that popped into my head that I thought might be a fun, unique style that people may not be expecting in security awareness videos, from the company, produced by the company, is doing like kind of the silhouette blackout, right? Where people are anonymous and they're anonymously sharing, you could have a lot of fun with that actually, where it looks serious, right? And they're keeping their identities covered, but then like you could really twist that and turn on it. And then you could, you could do a lot of different things with that. But, I think that might be something people may not expect.
Definitely. I think that, look, humor is a very important thing, and it's a thing that does well. It definitely works in terms of the uniqueness factor that we're talking about and I think especially in the security space, the cyberspace, humor goes over really well, because if you think about it, it can be quite a serious topic. It's very like, the stakes are high, right? To be able to lose everything, and people have a lot of fears around it. If it's going to work, what happens if it doesn't work, that sort of thing. And so I think sometimes when it comes to dealing with more serious issues, in the right context, of course, using humor to offset that, first of all, it surprises people. They're like, oh, wow. And they might even think, oh, I don't remember the last time I laughed today, or, whatever it is, because of the stuff that they're dealing with. Or maybe they're dealing with such technical problems all day that it is helpful for them to just sort of like take a break and laugh. But I would recommend, especially for people who deal with more serious topics, to kind of delve into a bit some humorous types of content here and there and see how it does. It's really refreshing for people, and I think it does really well.
Right. No, definitely is. And especially with the insecurity awareness, it can come across, if you're not careful, as just the nagging parent. No, like, don't click, don't do that, so it's important to kind of keep that lightheartedness to it for sure. So let's move on. The next point you have is clarity. Focus on clarity. You say, don't give your audience more questions, make the important info clear. And I think that's something really, it's harder than you think, right? It's kind of the idea of trying to write it in the size of a tweet kind of thing, so I'll let you talk more on that.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things that's so simple, and we all think that we're doing all the time, but it's often forgotten about, and we don't realize that we're not always being clear. This is a common thing, especially when working on videos, even professional high-level videos that we get, is because we work on a project so much that we make assumptions, and we forget that our audience may be quite fresh to what we're dealing with. Now, everyone here is probably dealing with different audiences. You may be working with audiences that are quite in the know, they're quite tech savvy, they know the language, all of these things, but at the same time, they are not aware of the specific information that you're attempting to present to people. So I would say the most important thing is that it should be clear, just, like you already read off here. Whatever you're trying to present, or at the end of the video, you want to think about certain things that you want to leave your audience with, right? You want them to leave either with a desire to do something, actually taking an action on something. There are a few different options for what you want your audience to do. So whatever that is, you want to make sure that that's 100% clear and focus on those things. And to the same token, I would say, is that you want to make sure that you're not adding too much information on top of that. It could be that the basic information is really clear and really there. But then what some people also try and do is they'll try and fit in this thing, and then they'll try and fit in this thing, so much that people are like, wait, what is this about? You want I don't want to say the worst thing you can do, but one of the worst things that you can do is when you're giving your audience more questions, and not the good kinds of questions, not the questions of, oh, I want to see where this takes me, I want to see what happens, but the kind of questions where they're like focusing on what was this detail and how is that important and what does that have to do with anything.
Right.
So
No, I think that's really good. We have Prasad has a question. How can you use testimonial style videos to simplify complex security awareness videos? Right. I mean, that's exactly like, creating awareness, for example, on the topic of data privacy. Right. And I think it's just exactly what you're saying. Like, because there's so much to security awareness, right? Like there's like the whole process and it's so broad and it's in so many different areas of our activities online and with business. What are your recommendations on taking something that's really big and bringing it down to be really concise, like you were saying, so you don't lose the point?
Right. So there's a few different things I would say about that. First of all, I would just say from a planning and video perspective, if you do go in and you're planning on filming some sort of testimonial with someone who's giving you feedback about how it was to work with you in some way. So before you meet with them, one of the recommendations I would say is that you want to make a plan, not just for, let's say, the full testimonial that they're going to give you. Maybe it's going to be edited down to a 5-minute clip, something like that. But you also want to plan for a lot of micro content. And I think what's inside this question, whether or not they meant it or not, I'm going to address it, is that how do we make sure that within that testimonial or within that content that we're also addressing all of these little things that we want to address? You don't want to just, you don't want to only have a client, a customer, whatever, somebody who is happy to work with you. You also want them to answer things for other people. So what I would suggest is possibly before you go and you video this testimonial with whoever it is that you come up with a list of either FAQs, common questions, common concerns, and objections that people have, and try and see if just on these individual questions, you can get this testimonial person to answer it in a short snippet. So maybe you do the whole testimonial, you sit there and talk to them, but you also want to be very mindful of what is the micro content, or how can I take a small individual, let's say 20-second piece, 30-second piece, and have them just address one answer to one question. And I think that that's a very powerful thing for micro content, because there's only so much information that people can take in at any given time, especially on the feed. But if you can just contextualize it into one short answer to a concern that many people have, I think that that's a very powerful thing.
Right. No, I think that's really good. Taking it and also recognizing, like, from one testimonial, you don't have to throw the whole testimonial that's like 2 to 5 minutes, at somebody. You can cut it up and have just those sound bites that do answer those individual questions, right? So you can kind of rethink how your testimonials videos should go, right? And in talking about like you do the micro documentary or micro docu-story.
Yeah, so I have something that's called mini docs. So they're done, there's a multitude of options there, but sometimes they're founder stories. They can be the story behind the business. They can be customer client testimonials. The idea being that you want to hear from people, even from those businesses that are really tech centered, that are product focused, even from the point of view of a business that doesn't necessarily have people at the forefront. It's really important to bring people to the forefront, because at the end of the day, who is using this software, technology, product, whatever it is, it's people. So to have it as part of that process. So a mini doc, basically, it's a short story-based video, but it's strategic and it appeals directly to the customers, the objections that they have, and the questions that they have.
I think, and that's a really great perspective you could apply to, like, for internally, like you could highlight the security team, right? To make them more human, right? Because usually a lot of times the feeling is, oh, it's the security people and I have to tell them I messed up and I don't want to go talk to them. Right? But if you can humanize them and help the rest of the employee base see the security team as their teammate, right? And as their cheerleader, and they want to help them. I think that's a really great idea. Also, so Mark has a question. Is it an idea to cut complex topics into a series of content?
Is it a good idea? Was that the... Was that
Yeah,
the question?
is it an idea? But I think that's probably what we're going for. Yeah.
I think it's not just an idea. I think it's a good idea. No, you always want to be, look, again, everyone here is working with different audiences, and they're probably going to be at different levels in terms of the knowledge, the pre-knowledge that they have coming into these things. So I can't speak across the board, but in general, I would say you can apply it that whatever is a complex topic, work to do what you can to bring it down to a simple level. Now, simple doesn't always have to mean dumbing it down, especially if that's not going to be fitting for your audience. But what it can mean is if you do have a really complex topic, maybe you just want to break it up into smaller parts, especially I think social media is really fitting for this, to have a part 1, a part 2, a part 3, some sort of series. People feel like, oh, if I like this part, hopefully I'm going to tune in for the next one. They kind of feel like they want to keep up with it in a way. And B, they can only, like I said, we can only take so much at any given time. So being able to just give it in short little snippets is really, really helpful. And I think it's also empowering for the audience as well, especially if you are trying to give over something. This is from an educational point of view, but if part of your content is educating people on things that are rather complicated, so you want to empower your audience. You don't want to overwhelm your audience. So if you are able to successfully break it down into shorter pieces, into simpler pieces, then the audience, when it comes to education, they're going to feel empowered and say, oh, wow, I get this. I feel like I could really get the hang of this. This is something I could actually do.
Yeah. So let's move on because we're running short on time. I just want to quickly move through the other parts. You have motivation. So the questions to think of in trying to motivate your audience, right, is to consider, why is this relevant to us? Why should your audience care? And why is this a problem requiring change? So let's just kind of touch on that real quickly. As far as using
what
that
I would say. Yeah, I would say this is a great question to ask yourself after you have a general idea as to what the content is going to be. So let's say you have an idea, either you want to do a testimonial, you want to do employee branding, you want to do, something like that. So then once you have a general idea for what you want that content to be, I want you to ask yourself, does my audience care about this? Why do they care about this? And if you have some sort of doubt as to whether or not they're going to care, so there are ways to be able to make your audience care in a way. Maybe it's by connecting them on a similar desire that they have, which ties into another point that we talked about, right? Maybe it's expressing a similar pain point. Maybe it's just showing that they're human just like you, or that they're helpful and kind, or whatever it is. But I would say in general, always trying to be thinking about the audience and to be thinking about what is the motivation behind why you're giving over this information to them and why they should care about it.
Yeah, it's always that "what's in it for me" kind of phrase that we love to throw in there. So then we have just 2 more. Consider the urgency, right? Some of your points here are to make it timely and relevant. You want to make them want to act now, which is a good one. For in a challenge, one of the big challenges is getting engagement. And then giving a sense of urgency, which this is a delicate issue, right? Because we tell them in security awareness, if you feel like, the FUD, right? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt, like, stop and take a break, right? So it's like it has to very delicately be addressed sometimes. But, we want to give them a sense of urgency because it is important that they, are motivated to care about, their own actions and behaviors digitally.
Right. So when it comes to urgency, this is a point that really ties into the call to action, which is going to look different depending on the type of video. Sometimes the call to action is just engage on this post, and other times the call to action is sign up now, do this thing. You're really asking something bigger of your audience, right? But the idea being that if someone thinks it's a good idea, but at any point, and that it will always be there, then they may never act on it. That's human nature, right? We're kind of lazy, we're involved in our own things, and we may not act on it. So to whatever extent that you can, again, not in a manipulative way, but in a way that just shows like there is benefit to acting now as opposed to acting later, to present that urgency in some form is really, really helpful. This is going to be the highest when you're doing some sort of video campaign for some reason and you're really trying to either recruit people, get people for something. And it's going to be harder when it comes to your general content.
Right.
But providing some sort of benefit and some sort of urgency is really, really important. Otherwise, you run the risk of just people never taking action.
Right. Just kind of scrolling. They saw it and they moved on and forgot. Yeah. Okay. And the last point that you had for people to consider when they're creating, some short testimonials or short types of content for their awareness training is ease. Right. And I like this. Make the action simple. So you want them to act, but you want to make sure you keep it simple. And then you help them. This is one I think is interesting. You help them picture doing it themselves. I think that's a really important one to consider. And give
Yeah,
them directions
so
is your last point.
yeah, so again, this ties into the end call to action, the urgency, the ease. So I think it's great that you sort of put them together. Want to be urgent, but you want it to be easy. I can't tell you the number of times that I've seen things like putting links in places on Instagram where they're not really like clickable or something like that. Like they're just important. Look, these are things you can do after the fact, but when you are getting ready to put out your video, you want to make sure that it's easy for them to do. Don't send them to some link that's going to send them to somewhere else, that's going to send them to someone else, right? This sort of goes outside of the bounds of the video. But when you're thinking about ending the video, ending the content, whatever it is, know that if it is not easy, then people will not do it. And not only that, but you might actually annoy people in the process if they start the process, but they get too frustrated to finish it.
Yeah. What is it called? The rage clicking? You're just like, it's not working.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then, the give them directions. It sounds like so simple, but again, how much we need just that very clear, whereas either click the box or, go talk to your manager or whatever it might be. It's just something simple, but you need just that push and that, trigger, if you will.
Right. It goes back to what we were saying before about we make all these assumptions that our audience knows, they understand, they'll be able to figure it out. But we have to make the assumption that you are explaining something to someone who really needs all of the help in the world. Make it clear, put it there. It's better that it's there than people having to guess and the alternative situation coming up. Making it very clear, very simple, and easy to do.
Right. And Mark just wanted to know, is just one call to action in a video, or highlight one call to action if you have multiple? Like if you're wanting them to do multiple actions, right? Thinking about like security awareness, like first you need to do this, then this, then this. How would you recommend the best practice?
So what I would say is you always should have one call to action. But I will say that the call to action in the example you gave, that's just like start the process, right? That could be do this thing and this thing will lead to this thing and this thing. When I say a call to action, it's really like an end message. So either it's join our cause, sign up for our thing, be a part of this, be a customer, whatever it is. So it's sort of like one message. Now, if that action has multiple steps, that doesn't mean that you're having multiple calls to action. The problem with having more than one call to action is that people get confused and they forget what they're supposed to do. So if a call to action is that you want to educate people, you want to raise awareness, but then you also kind of want them to sign up and become a client, then there's this conflict not only in the way that you're presenting the information, because you'll be halfway educating them and then halfway trying to sell to them and do these different things. So that presents a challenge. And B, they may follow one and not the other. So it's important to have one unified message in your video that you're looking for them to do. But that doesn't mean that there can't be multiple outcomes from the action that you're asking of them.
Okay. And from an awareness perspective, I think that could take a few different variations depending, because really what we're trying to do in awareness is change behavior, right? We're trying to inspire and motivate them to feel the urgency of protecting themselves and therefore the business that they're working for, and so trying to get that change of behavior. So, trying to rethink what does a call to action look like in that sense. So you've really given, I think, a lot of great things to think about when creating a video, and so thank you so much, Elisheva, for sharing your wisdom. Like I said, I will include the PDF. I'll add it to the stream. And also we have a community that we do weekly meetups on Thursdays. If you'd like to join our Security Awareness Manager meetup, please reach out to me or find it on LinkedIn, and we'll send you some more information. And, and we'll also have this recording recapped as well for later reference. So thank you so much. And Elisheva, they can find you. They can connect with you on LinkedIn. She puts out great information also to follow her for learning more.
Yeah, you can contact me through a variety of ways. Go to my website, on LinkedIn, social media, whatever. I'm always happy to talk. Even if you just have a question about some content, some videos, some ideas, I'm always here.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who joined in and asked great questions.